Tonight we dive into the forbidden knowledge of the Nephilim and the visions of Enoch, where ancient secrets meet modern curiosity in a quest for understanding beyond the boundaries of time and mythology. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
He's alive!
Have you checked the children?
Get out!
You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. 2 words and 2 question marks.
Hello, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Tax season is upon us. Did you know that 47% of Americans are planning to use their tax refunds for everyday expenses, home improvements, and vacations? What if you used your tax refund for a new home instead? Again, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be used towards down payment, closing costs, or paying down existing debt to help get approved. So before you spend that tax refund, let's get together and see how to best utilize those funds to invest in your future and your new home. Call or text me at 502-680-0953. Again, that's 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, Das Acquisitions LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Jerry. How are you?
Doing great.
Brett's in the house.
Yes, he is.
In the house.
Got him back with us.
That's back-to-back episodes with
I
Brett.
know.
Wow.
Hey, with 3 kids, it's a tough feat to accomplish.
Yeah.
3 and soon to be 4.
It's soon to be 4,
Soon
yeah.
to be 4.
All girls.
All girls.
But
You are
certified-
seriously outvoted in that house.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
You have no clue when it
We're
comes to a
already
vote.
figuring
Just take a
out-
family vote and you're like, just go ahead.
Oh, the bathroom's already full.
You're going to have to find a way to add like 2 or 3 or 4 bathrooms.
I'm going to have to figure out something.
Or maybe add 2 or 3 or 4 boys. Even out the numbers here.
Well, it doesn't help him get in the bathroom any.
Yeah.
No, that'll further the
We
problem
could at least
with
go
bathrooms.
outside for majority of our...
Yeah.
Yeah. Not can. I think we'll have to. With
Yeah.
that many females in the house, you will have no choice.
Yeah, you're toast come teenage years, man. Toast.
I don't even want to think about it.
I had one awesome daughter and then 3 rotten boys, and no, I'm just kidding. All my kids are awesome, but
Except for
boys are
Nick.
different. Boys are just different, you know.
Not that different.
You raise them different. You feel differently about them. You protect them differently. You know, in a situation I can think of, if a girl, you know, is in a spot, your instinct as a dad is, I want to protect them, and then as
But I mean, what age are you talking?
I'm talking, you know,
13, teenage years?
yeah, and then
maybe.
12, 13, you're like, oh, you fell and busted your face, get up and do it again.
If it's a boy.
It only hurts for a minute. Chicks
But when they're
dig
little,
scars.
you know, kids are kids.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 6, 7, 8, probably 9. I mean, it's a kid's a kid.
Yeah.
I had
But-
one daughter, is all I had, so it would probably be a little bit different when you get into the teenage
Well,
years.
Here's
as
the
far as protection.
difference that you never got to experience.
What's that?
Anybody who's had multiple children will tell you that this is the way it typically goes. Parents, and you probably already know this, on your first child, you're overprotective. You're doing everything the book says to do. You're following all the advice. You're doing. By the time Nick came up, I'm like, are you still breathing? Good. Check mark.
I saw a meme once. I'm sure you probably wrote it. But I saw a meme once that summed it up pretty well. And it said, first kid. And the mother is interviewing a babysitter. And she's like, okay, so you have a master's degree in children's technology or children's development. You have this and this and this. But do you have more than 15 years experience? Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say no. Second kid. On her way out the door, there's this emo goth girl that's the prospective babysitter, and she's got this huge nose ring. And as the mother tosses her child to the emo girl, she says, you might want to take that ring out. She'll rip it out if you don't.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean...
Huge difference. And that's boy or girl.
And your daughter is experiencing that right now. I mean,
young boys.
So it's funny because your daughter was that parent on her first. Everything was by the book. And me and you kind of shook our head with that.
In many ways, she still is. In a lot of ways, parenting has come a long way from when you and I raised kids.
Oh, yeah.
The things that you are not supposed to do and that we now know is very dangerous compared to what we did for so many years. Things as simple as whether or not you put a blanket into the crib with a small child. Known to be a huge suffocating hazard, and we've known that for quite a while.
How many people use those as props right around their face for a bottle?
Back in the day, yeah.
We've never done that.
Yeah, good for y'all.
Co-sleeping. That used to be a big thing, and now, they know that if you do that, that's a huge, your risk of SIDS increases dramatically.
We've never done that either.
That's even good. That's why you have so many kids, just so you know.
Just saying, all of our kids have co-sleeped, and we all...
Oh, no, not co-sleep means that they sleep with you.
They do.
He knows what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You'll let them co-sleep? Some, at least?
It got to a certain point where it wasn't like a let, it was like, I want to go to sleep. I'm not fighting this anymore.
Back in our day, it was the same deal. That's why we would.
We are just now at my oldest daughter's 4. This in the past 6 months have been like, all right, you gotta sleep in your bed. It's still a fight. Like,
no, see,
this kid, we're not doing it at all. It's like, no, you're sleeping in your bed.
I'm not going to mention any names, but your best friend was that kid, and it took me 2 years to get him out of my bed.
Yep.
And his little brother didn't have a chance to even look at he didn't even see my bed. He didn't know I had a separate bedroom. He thought I slept in a cave. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's pretty much
too funny.
Yeah, you get 3 kids in there, and
yeah.
Well, we don't even let the
king
dogs
size
sleep
is
with us.
very small.
Well, we have king size, but it's
very small.
Yeah,
with that many people.
Yes.
It's crazy.
We've come up with a lot of things that we now know how to theoretically do better. A lot of inventions. It just reminds me, do you guys know what was more important than the invention of the first telephone?
What's that?
The invention of the second telephone. Just saying.
You kind of need both.
You, on that same token, you know what the first phone call was, right? Alexander Graham Bell was sitting there, his phone rings, and the guy on the second telephone picks it up, and he's like, "We've been trying to reach you, but your car's extended."
Yeah. I think I told you this the other day. As Steve is always talking about on the show, I'm such an old man. But I told him I have gotten to the age where I'm certainly thankful that I have someone that is worried about me enough to call and check on me every day. Sadly, he's from India, and he's very worried about my car warranty. But at least he's calling to check on me every day.
Yeah, that's good. Well, when we were speaking of children, when we were growing up, you can ask any of my kids. My favorite word growing up was no.
No.
I just couldn't afford it. The second favorite word was clearance. Well, is it on clearance? So you can even ask any of them. Those are the words that came out of my mouth whenever they ask anything first. So make no surprise, when Robin and I went out on our first date, I found a place. It was spring going into summer. It was an ice skating rink, and it was half price to get in.
Very
Can you
nice.
believe she called me a cheapskate?
Cheapskate, huh?
Nice.
Liked how you worked that one in there. I
Yeah.
did.
See, it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah, we're kind of like speaking of having that fourth kid. I've had to start a business just to make some extra money.
A business.
So me and Truly, we're starting to sell statues if anybody's interested. So far, we've only sold one. It was a bust.
Oh,
Ah!
don't know if you're going to want to keep doing that. It's a bust. But for kids, you may not have a choice.
Oh, a bust. Oh, my.
Steve really liked that one.
I needed that. I needed it. Thank you, Brett.
Oh, me.
Well, I just wanted real quick, kind of been cataloging my little battle with this crap I've been going with the last few weeks. And in all seriousness, this is the week I feel worse this week than I have through any of this process. Just the diet, the medicines, everything's a combination. So I'm going to kind of step back a little bit on this episode and let these fine, young, outstanding men take care of this episode a little bit. But the good news is we're almost at the end of the tunnel. A couple more weeks, we'll be out of this and hopefully back raring to go. But man, this has been brutal this last week.
The stress alone. Can't even imagine.
Well, it's the stress, it's the lack of medication, it's the diet.
I can't imagine.
There's a lot. I didn't feel this bad after the big surgery. So,
Yep.
And these guys here, they come in, they don't care. I had staples in my neck and tubes hanging out. We're doing a show and it's all good, but today's bad. Very bad.
Hopefully it'll be over soon.
Absolutely will. In the right way. Let's,
The stress and
cancer sucks.
oh, it does.
I mean, Toby Keith passed this week.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
That sucks.
We literally
Only
were
a few
just
weeks
talking about
ago.
that. Yeah.
Right now we're talking about it, and I showed him a video with some award show where he did his newest song,
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
Let the Old Man In.
Yeah.
And,
He was
Yeah,
making
2
fun
days
of
ago.
himself wearing skinny jeans and King Charles now just announced he has some form of cancer. They haven't came forth with what kind. So cancer just sucks. Well, that was interesting.
see who's wanting in the door.
Very interesting. Stupid cat.
We have a special guest.
Wow. For y'all don't know, my studio is in my house. And literally the door just knocked. Like there was a human knocking on the door.
Repeatedly.
Repeatedly.
Knock.
And it was our dumb little gray cat that's not very even social.
Except when we're over here, the last couple of weeks, it seems like I was over
Very
here.
nice.
She's had a mental flip-flop because normally she stays upstairs and now she just can't get enough of people. I don't know if it's an age thing.
Don't shortchange her now. She's the second member of the One-Eyed Gang, so
Yeah, that's true.
she has her own claim to fame.
We both have a cat, but we have 2 cats, and both of them are blind in one eye. It's crazy. Of course, for the record, my wife is a vet tech, so we live in the house of broken animals.
Yep.
But that's just crazy. Anywho, sorry, didn't interrupt with that. Tonight we got a really cool topic.
It's a giant
Sort of.
topic.
It's an
No pun
enormous.
intended.
It's an enormous topic.
That it is. Especially according to Enoch.
Yeah.
Very, very enormous.
Yeah. If you're, and when we're making fun, but that really is the length. That's the thing. I mean, that's the size of the situation, if you will.
We have confused the holy crap
Brett,
with people by now.
what are we talking about tonight?
So we're talking about Nephilim.
Woo!
which I guess is another term for giants, for giant people. So,
and we're not talking about like Andre the Giant or the Big Show. We're talking about real giants.
Like real giants that...
Biblical giants.
Right.
Well, let me just start by saying, because I don't know how long my voice or my mind or anything's going to hold out. Let me just start real quick. I got the privilege of loving wrestling back when Andre was still wrestling. And he was at a show in Rupp Arena. And I was right by the spot where they walk out, the walkway. And I got to see Andre up close. And you will see him against men in the ring, if you look at any of the old video. And he makes Hulk Hogan look small.
Right.
He makes King Kong Bundy look small. But unless you actually saw him up... I'll tell you a funny story about Andre the Giant. He was in the movie Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We all know Arnold Schwarzenegger, bodybuilder, big dude. That's how he got the part. Arnold was telling this story not too long ago on a talk show. And he's like, we were filming Conan the Barbarian. And we all went out to dinner. Well, Andre was a known drinker. Gallons and gallons of booze. Well, he was also very big-hearted. And Andre was like, Arnold was like, well, I've got dinner tonight. And Andre's like, no, I buy. And Arnold's like, no, Andre, I have to insist I'm buying dinner. So they go along. They finish dinner. And all of a sudden... Andre gets up to go to the bathroom, and he picks Arnold Schwarzenegger up by his belt loops and hangs him on the coat rack, and then pays the bill and leaves.
Wow.
And that's how he got away from paying. That's how Andre got to pay the bill. He just literally picked Schwarzenegger up and hung him by his belt loops on the coat rack.
Man.
But this guy's neck, I want to say, now I was young, but 1.5 wide, easy 18 inches wide, his neck. And this was back when he was still healthy. Like when most people remember Andre being slammed by Hogan at WrestleMania, he was already very unhealthy. He had gained a lot more weight. He was on the end. But when I saw him, he was very healthy and not quite that big. But he still had an 18-inch neck.
When did you see him? Do you know? Do you remember? Did you get close?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Somewhere in that.
The reason I asked, when I was in college, which was mid...
You were probably doing security for the show.
Security at Rupp Arena. Worked for a company called Anti-Frame Security. And worked every... wrestling
You
match.
probably were there.
I wasn't there in the late 90s or late
Gotcha.
late 80s. So yeah,
it was back then. He was still, he hadn't got the black strap that come across yet. He was still in just the trunks, if that tells you how long ago it was. But just, and I use him for a point of reference because for most people that listen to this program, that's as big as it gets.
How tall was he? Do you remember?
I'm sure.
it says here that I read somewhere that on his French passport he was listed at 7 foot or 7'1", but most people think that he was 2 or 3 inches shorter than that. So somewhere around 7 foot.
And Wade went somewhere between, depending on what time of his life, 450 to 550 pounds.
Big dude.
Big dude. But anyway, Brett, tell us about real giants.
Yeah, so the story of Nephilim really starts in the Bible, and it starts in the very first book in the Bible, in Genesis, chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. So this passage tells the readers that the Nephilim, which literally translates to fallen ones, were the product of population between the divine beings, which were called sons of God, and human women, which were literally the daughters of Adam, So their origins are disputed among Christians and biblical scholars. So some, including the author of the Book of Enoch, which we're going to get into, view them as offsprings of fallen angels and humans. Just a couple more of those different theories. So again, fallen angels mated with humans. That's the first one. That's the most common one. Another one is that they were godly descendants of Seth, who married ungodly women from the line of Cain. And then the other one is basically just saying the sons of God were powerful individuals or rulers.
And the idea, sorry to interrupt, but in the thought of Seth and Cain's descendants, the idea being Seth, the good son, right?
Right.
Would be, or it referred to the sons of God, and Cain being the evil one because he killed his brother Abel. Right. Is that the thought? Okay.
Yeah. So, actually, it might help to I'm just going to read the passage just real quick. I don't want this to be a big Bible study, but this is chapter 6, starting with verse 1. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards. When the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them, these were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. And so immediately after this, I think in verse 5 actually is when the whole story of Noah begins. Am I correct on that?
Right.
Yeah.
And how he was. It's saying that the children of Nephilim brought many bad, evil things to the world. Verse 5 starts saying how he's going to get rid of this problem, which is through the flood of Noah.
And there are multiple other verses that reference the Nephilim. Let's see. Numbers 13:33. They reference they reference seeing the Nephilim with the Anakites. There is mention in Baruch, the talk about giants, how they were. Let's see. So, O Israel, how great is the house of God? How vast the territory that He possesses! It is great and has no bounds. It is high and immeasurable. The giants were born there, who were famous of old, great in stature, expert in war. God did not choose them or give them the way to knowledge, so they perished because they had no wisdom. They perished through their folly. And this kind of goes into, and in 2 Samuel, there's multiple mentions of giants. Obviously, we all know the story of David and Goliath. I will read this passage talking about Goliath. They're just describing him. So, and there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So 6 cubits, it's about 9 feet. A span is about 9 inches. So they're basically describing him as being 9 feet 9 inches. And as we were just saying, Andre the Giant was 7 feet, roughly, plus or minus a couple inches. So this dude was almost 3 feet taller than Andre the Giant. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. So 5,000 shekels is roughly 125 pounds. I want you guys to just pick up 125 pounds and then just wear it all day and see how that feels. He had greaves of bronze on his legs and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels. So this is about 15 pounds. So his spear, the head of his spear was 15 pounds. I couldn't imagine getting impaled with that thing. So anyways, this dude was huge. So there's multiple mentions of giants, of the Nephilim in the Bible. And before, people go on to say, who knows if the Bible's true. Whether you like it or not, the Bible is a historical artifact. And it's the most, sold, distributed book in the history of the world. So to just completely discount it, especially on a show where we talk about conspiracy theories and aliens and Bigfoot, to completely discount, these stories I think is unfair. But
Well, I'll take it a step further. You can back that statement up further with the fact that nowadays archaeologists use the Bible as points of reference to make discoveries. So it's not even a question of, oh, it's a bunch of hogwash. If it were hogwash, the archaeologists, who have very valuable dollars that they can't afford to waste, wouldn't use it as a reference point to find the new things that they want to find.
Right.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. So one book that is not actually in the Bible, the book of Enoch. So Enoch was the father of Noah. Talks a lot about these Nephilim. Jerry, you want to talk more about that?
Enoch. He was the seventh, I think. The fifth chapter of Genesis gives the lineage of all of the people from Adam to Noah. And if I remember correct, Enoch was the sixth one from 6 or 7. He was the great grandfather of Noah, whatever that makes him. So yeah, Enoch was a biblical patriarch. He was prior to Noah's flood. He's the son of Jared, the father of Methuselah, and the great-grandfather, as we said, of Noah. In relation to biblical text, he wrote at least part of the book of Enoch, surprisingly, right? It's got his name.
What? You're
Now,
kidding.
believe it or not, and as far as I know, this is the only one in the entire Bible that would be this way. But the book of Enoch, which is, by the way, not a part of the Bible, according to almost everyone, we'll get to that in a minute. But the book of Enoch has 130-something chapters, I think, and it is believed that the book of Enoch has up to 6 authors. He did not write nearly all of it. It was written over a period of 200 to 300 years. He did not write nearly all of it, but he did write a considerable portion. As we said, it is a scriptural religious text that it was widely read during the second temple period, which was from 516 BCE to 70 CE, about 600 years. During that time period, it was considered very religious. It was read to a great degree in the temples, we believe, and that is based upon the number of copies that were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Wow.
Numerous copies were found. Even so, the book of Enoch is not part of the Roman Catholic Bible. It is not part of the Jewish Bible. It's not part of any Protestant Bible. It is a part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church's Bible. It is the only Bible in the world that considers it to be a part. That is true because it contains many things that nothing else in the Bible covers. It's also true because it has many things that are in disagreement with most of the rest of the Bible, which is why at approximately somewhere around the 5th century, from that point on, it was no longer considered canon, which means to be inspired scripture, inspired by God. So it was no longer canon from the 5th century on. Yes.
Did Disney do that like they did Star Wars?
I'm pretty sure it probably was Disney,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted to know how far Disney's been messing things up.
Disney
that's
is not given the true credit it deserves. Not many people know that it was around
all. Okay.
in the 5th century, but we're pretty sure that Disney was responsible for this. Yes.
Shame on them.
What the reason that we're talking about Enoch and the book of Enoch is because the book of Enoch talks about the Nephilim to a great degree. Nephilim is mentioned in the Bibles that we use very limited number of times. I believe it's twice that the word Nephilim actually appears. Now, there's many other instances where it's talking about giants, and it could be referring to Nephilim. The word Nephilim in the Hebrew Bible occurs twice, and you mentioned those two, Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, and Numbers 13:33. But other than that, in the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, which there's only the Old Testament, the word Nephilim doesn't exist but in those two instances. But in the book of Enoch, he goes into great detail about the Nephilim. As Brett mentioned, the Genesis 6, right, where he talks about the sons of God.
Yep.
were the most common thought is that that was referring to fallen angels, and that they took human wives and their children were the Nephilim, the giants. The book of Enoch, you don't need to wonder exactly, is that what he meant? That's exactly what he says. And he goes into great description of, he even gives a number. There was 200 of them that he says that came to the earth, and how they decided against God's advice and against God's wishes to take human wives and become human. And he also talks in great degree of how that worked out, of the things. There were several things that he said that they did that were good for people. He says that they taught humanity various sciences, arts, and forbidden knowledge. Again, we talked about the fact that they're usually associated with giants and beings of great power. In fact, we mentioned that the word Nephilim is in the Catholic Bible and in a few of the older, more strict versions of the Bible, but in most versions of the Bible, King James included, the word Nephilim doesn't exist. It's translated to giants.
Now, they are mentioned in the Quran at least once. Yeah.
Do you remember with what the context of that? I do not. Maybe you could look it up while I go into this.
Well, they had a prophet Hud who declares to be like Jabarin. And it probably a reference to the biblical Nephilim. The people of Ad are said to be giants. The tallest among them, 100 feet tall, 30 meters. However, according to the Islamic legend, the Ad were not wiped out by the flood, since some of them were too tall to be drowned. Instead, God destroyed them after they rejected further warnings, and after death they were banished to the lower levels of hell.
100 feet, pretty tall.
Pretty tall.
The book of Enoch says that they were 450 feet tall.
That's a big dude.
That's a pretty big dude. We're talking about how giant that you thought Andre the Giant actually was when you were relatively young.
Yeah.
And he was 7 foot, a little over maybe, possibly.
And that's a football field and a half tall.
Yeah. Tall.
Could you imagine?
Straight up. Yeah, very, very tall.
Yeah, David's not going up against that with a rock.
No.
Do you imagine that, and this is completely off kilter, it really has nothing to do with this, but the island, Easter Island, where they have these carvings that we thought for years were just heads, and now they've uncovered that they're actual full bodies, and they are, some of them 25, 30, 40 feet in length. We wonder if that is a reference point to Nephilim.
But they talk about, I was watching this one video, I can't remember the exact source, but Egyptians have a lot of drawings of people who are much taller than, a normal human would be.
Right.
And some people think they were drawing gods, but some people believe that maybe they were drawing Nephilim that actually existed.
One that I remember in particular is of the guy holding the lion by the neck in a headlock, while there's little humans beside him that come up barely to his waist. I mean, that's either a giant or a god or a king who they hold in high esteem. So,
right. Earlier, you mentioned about the scripture that mentions when the sons of God married the daughters of men. And you gave some of the explanations. There's one non-biblical explanation that we didn't go into, and that one is that they were celestial beings.
The Anunnaki.
Aliens.
Yeah, that's who most people think the Anunnaki
Absolutely.
is. Yeah.
So
That's a whole
I'm not
different
saying
show.
that's a different show. There's no evidence to prove one way or the other, but that is one of the theories of how that this happened. Now, in case that we weren't, in case Enoch wasn't different enough, in case he wasn't surprising enough, the 5th chapter of Genesis contains the lineage of genealogy, as we mentioned earlier, of the descendants from Adam to Noah. And it gives the age at which each one fathered the child that was going to lead to Noah. It also tells how many years they lived from that point until they died. And it ends up with every single one of these saying, and the total of their life was X number of years, and they died. Lived for so many years, and they died. Except for Enoch. Doesn't say that. Here's what it says with him. Genesis 5:24 says, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Which would make him one of only two people in the entire Bible that the Bible says didn't die. Elijah and Enoch were taken straight to heaven, according to, if that's the way that you take this, and I don't know how else you can take it. When if
it just said that, you could take it a million different ways. But because every other single person in the lineage said a very specific, and they died.
They lived for so many years, and they died.
Right. I think that excludes them from being able to be
6 before and 3 after.
Right.
It wasn't like it did it to a certain point and changed the way it was describing it.
I just
for
think
every single one.
I just think that is, words have power and words have meaning, and that's an actual, there's meaning behind the fact.
Whatever that is, there's a meaning to it.
He didn't die or whatever.
Very true. Now, the book of Enoch, if I can talk, describes the Nephilim as powerful beings who taught humanity various sciences, arts, and forbidden knowledge. And we talked about the fact that they are often associated with giants and beings of great power. I can scroll down here without losing my place. It is believed that they were responsible for introducing things like astrology, weaponry, even cosmetics, according to the book of Enoch.
Wow.
To civilization. Yet their imparting of this knowledge came with a price. They were also accused of corrupting humanity and leading them astray. They were seen as a threat to the divine order of the universe and were eventually condemned for their transgressions. And the book of Enoch goes into great detail about how the flood was because of the Nephilim and the disruptions that they had brought to the world, and how God decided he was going to get rid of them from the face of the earth. And the punishment was the form of the Great Flood.
Now,
yes.
Do you care if I bring the giants a little closer to us here in North America?
Not at all. Go right ahead.
And I only bring this up because when we talk about giants, we have to talk about all the giants. Now, obviously, we're talking about Nephilim here, who somewhere between the Quran and the Book of Enoch are between 100 and 400 feet tall, huge dudes. In at least 2 different spots in America, we have uncovered skeletal remains of giants. Now, they are not 100 feet tall, and they're not 400 feet tall. But in West Virginia, we have the Giant Mounds, where there are several mounds of dirt with several bodies at the base that are 7 to 10 to 12 feet tall. We also have the ancient Indian stories out in the desert Southwest about the red-haired giants who hunted humans, who used humans as food until the tribes of the Indians banded together, had a 3-year war against the red-headed giants, eventually pushed them into a cave, and then began to smoke them out. And as they came out of the cave from the smoke, they popped them off. They picked them off as they came out, and the ones that didn't come out died of smoke inhalation. And we found physical evidence of those. That's right here in America. And these are, again, they're not 100 feet tall. They're not, but they, by today's standards, dwarf most NBA players. Bone structure puts them at, 500, 600, 700 pounds of muscle. Just the way that their teeth and everything of what they could and would eat. I just thought that was something that needed to be brought up.
Yeah, there was I'm glad you brought that. So there was a study back in 2018. So researchers at Harvard made a discovery that they discovered the civilization that built Stonehenge had vanished from existence right after it was built. So they were comparing the DNA of ancient human bones and then compared it to the DNA of modern people in that same area. And apparently this specific DNA, it vanished from existence like very shortly after Stonehenge was supposedly built.
It's crazy.
In 1998, there was a research team at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and they analyzed Native Americans, and they were trying to trace them back to different paths that they took to get to the Americas. And there was one lineage where they could not trace it to any sort of root, and this was called the X lineage. So this lineage is found in 2.5% of Native Americans and some Europeans. So nobody knows where this came from, but some believe that this could possibly be tied to giants. And actually, one thing that you were talking about, the West Virginia mounds, the Smithsonian was actually the first, I guess, group of people, first researchers that found a giant in one of those mounds. And I think it was after 1923 they just started denying the existence of giants. But one of the first one they found, it said there was 10 bodies placed in a circle around a central body, and then that central body was over 7 feet tall. So anyways, I just thought that was pretty cool.
And even a more modern giant. In 2024, Saquon Barkley is going to be looking at free agency from the New York Giants. Sorry, I had to throw it in.
I Googled who was the tallest man in history. There was someone named Robert Wadlow.
Yeah.
Who was born in 1818.
Right, yeah.
8 foot, 11 inches tall, almost 9 feet.
Yeah, have you seen the Guinness Book of World Records pictures with him?
Yes.
And they always it always makes me funny because they always put him with the smallest person, and I'm like, oh, that it kind of makes me guffaw a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Giants have been around for a long time.
So let me ask you all this. Do
Sure.
you think that giants still exist? Like in this form that we are talking about? Obviously, there's people who are 7 feet tall, but...
There's been some here very recently, if you believe Jerry's favorite website, TikTok, there's been giant doors discovered and people peeking out of the doors. I personally don't think, and here's the thing I'll say about them that I say about Bigfoot. With today's technology, with today's advance of security cameras and cameras being everywhere, if we don't have proof in the next 5 years, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, there's the deep fake stuff is happening at a huge rate now, and especially when it comes to like Bigfoot and Yeti and stuff. But now we're getting all back views. We're not getting any front views of Bigfoot. It used to be you get the grainy front view of him peeking around a tree or whatever. Those have all gone away because of technology. Now you're getting the deep fakes of him walking away or being way over on a hillside. Who knows? There was the one guy that found the doorway to a giant's lair and went back, and you see the video and the door kind of closes real fast, and you go up to it and it all looks like a rock wall. Who knows, man? This world's so big and we're so small.
Yeah. You just think about the ocean and
Yeah,
how little we've explored of the ocean.
Right.
Totally agree. One thing I will say in closing is this. According to everything that we had read and talked about, the Nephilim existed before the flood. It's mentioned in Genesis chapter 6. If you have a literal view of the Bible and a literal view of the flood, Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives were taken into the ark. And you would think that the rest of civilization perished, including Nephilim, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind that the second scripture in the Bible where Nephilim is specifically mentioned is Numbers 13:33. This is during the time of Moses. The time period between Noah and Moses was 800 years. So 800 years later, there was still Nephilim. Are they still in the world today? I agree with you. If we've got giants in the world today, I'm not talking 400 foot, I'm talking 10, 11 foot people. There's going to have to be proof soon, or it's just not happening. We've got too many cameras, too many people.
Satellite imagery.
Yes, all around the world.
Right.
I mean,
So,
that's the big kicker. We have satellites that can literally read when you flip a quarter if it's heads or tails from space at this point. Unless you're a flat earther, believe we're not actually in space. I'm not that, but I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah, I completely agree. So let me ask you this. This is something that popped in my head. It may be completely stupid. So there's like a big creature that we have a lot of proof that existed, however many years ago. That's, dinosaurs. Do you think that there might be some sort of correlation between dinosaurs and Nephilim, and because they're not really describing them in any sort of certain way other than they're ginormous?
No, because most scientists believe that dinosaurs existed but didn't have access to utensils. We're talking about giants that not only interacted with but mated with human women.
Yeah, and I'm specifically talking about the Nephilim in Genesis. I don't think that Goliath was described in any sort of way other than a human.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that. And
my answer would be, show me the proof.
Yeah.
Always
Is it possible? Well, shouldn't it be?
Yeah, should be.
I think we should be questioning, but not closed-minded enough to say that I'll absolutely say that it didn't happen, but prove it to me. So unless there's some proof, I don't think at this point we have any evidence that it did happen. So I would agree with Steve from that standpoint.
Here's another point.
Sure.
And when you get into biblical studies, and we're not doing that here.
Right. Yeah, please everyone understand, we did not attempt in any shape, form, or fashion to do that.
But you can't speak to Nephilim without speaking to the Bible. You can't separate
without referencing it somewhat.
But here's the thing that I've always thought fascinating about giants. There is proof now that the Neanderthals were not some big, lumbering, dumb, uncoordinated race of humans that just vanished. There is more and more mounting evidence that the Neanderthals were not only very smart, that they hunted in packs, and they loved Homo sapien food. Not Homo sapiens food, Homo sapiens as food. And they would often come into an area and Homo sapiens hid or died. They've killed multiple species of Homo sapiens off. And that's going to be a topic for a different show. But if you are Homo sapien like we are, and Homo sapiens from a very beginning time were smaller, had bigger heads, but weren't covered in fur. We weren't designed to live in a particular way. The Neanderthals were most people now believe were fur covered, or at least partially fur covered, big, stocky, very smart. Basically, the only way Homo sapiens put them down was to outsmart them. But anyway, I mean, if a few of those survive, that could be considered gigantic in a lot of ways. But so we've went way back with this one. We're talking a millennia or so. So what do you think, Brett? Do the Nephilim deserve more or less news coverage? Did you have something to add, Jerry? I'm sorry. Oh, you had to look like I didn't want to cut you off.
Not at all. I was just wondering how I'm going to answer and you get to me.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I didn't even know Nephilim were in the Bible. I've read Genesis many times, and I never stopped in that word and was like, "Hey, what is that?"
I totally second that because in my Bible, the word's not even in there. It translated it as giants.
Yeah. So I think that there needs to be some more coverage as because I never hear anybody mentioning Nephilim ever. So in that respect, I think that there should be more coverage. As far as there's not any new evidence coming out.
Let me blow your mind real quick before you answer.
Yeah.
One of the kings that we know in history existed was considered a Nephilim. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
King Gilgamesh. Most people believe that King Gilgamesh and his buddy, his running mate, the one that he fought, and I don't remember his name. I really, truly don't.
I think he was a giant or a Nephilim.
They think he was Nephilim.
Cool. I had no clue of that.
He was battled with another Nephilim-like creature who they became fast friends, and eventually that battle transformed Gilgamesh from a hateful, harsh, spiteful ruler. There were stories that Gilgamesh would go to a wedding and bed the wife before she became the wife in front of the new groom because he didn't care because nobody could do anything to him. He went from that to a very wise, just leader who realized that, they were mortal. But, that's something that if you Google Gilgamesh's tomb, there's always a video up, oh, we found it, or, but anyway, what do you think?
I would say I'm kind of on the fence. I will lean towards thumbs up for this one. Just because, if only just for the fact that I did not know that it was even in the Bible. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
I would say this. I believe that it needed more coverage until tonight, and I think we may have done it justice.
Look at Jerry go. Wow.
Nice, polite way of saying I don't know that it needs that much more.
Thumbs down for Jerry. Yeah. I'm like Brett. I'm on the fence. I think that giants in general probably need a thumbs up because we do have physical proof. We do have the mounds in West Virginia. We do have an archaeological dig site in, I think it's Southwest Nevada or New Mexico, and those remains are in the Smithsonian somewhere. But as far as Nephilim and what a 450-foot tall Nephilim, or 100-foot tall if you're a subscriber to the Quran, I just can't imagine something of that size being a realistic thing in today's world without hundreds of thousands of people see. You can't be that big and hide.
Right.
Going along with what Brett was saying earlier, why haven't we found at least one skeleton?
Right.
Of dinosaurs.
Right.
Why haven't we found one of, forget a 450 foot. How about a 25-foot human?
Right.
We would still find some sort of...
None of that's been found.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to have to say thumbs up on giants, thumbs down for Nephilim. That's my pick. I didn't give you all that option.
Last week, we all the same.
Yeah.
This week, we're all different.
Every one of us is different. Absolutely.
That figures.
Any final words, final thoughts?
Nothing here. Like I said, I think this is a cool. I think Jerry might be honest stuff. This is a cool topic. I'm glad we did it.
Yep.
It's not like the. Which one was it? We did one episode where we started researching this and found that there was barely. This was one of those where there's a lot of stuff to this that I didn't know before.
Right.
But I don't know if we can do any more coverage than we have tonight.
What it wants me to do, and strictly because I'm like you, I agree that the Bible is not only a religious book, but it is also an archaeological book. And it makes you want to dig into that in the origins. And more importantly, if it hasn't taught us anything, it's taught us that translation is everything.
Yeah.
You know, and the Bible's been translated 100, 200 times. So that's kind of a cool thing and a neat thing. And all of this leads right to our bonus story.
Man, that episode is really interesting. And if you'll stick around for us for just a few commercials, we have another great story to tell you.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. When it comes to buying a home, the process can be overwhelming and confusing. With so many options, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why it's important to work with a certified mortgage loan originator. I have the knowledge and expertise to guide you through the process and find the best mortgage option for you. I will work with you every step of the way to ensure that you are getting the best deal possible. So if you're looking to purchase or refinance, please reach out to me at 502-680-0953. So don't take on the stress of buying a home alone. Work with me and I will make your dream a reality. Trust the professionals and make your home buying experience a positive one. MLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, MLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is equal housing opportunity.
If you want us to review or rate your product on air, if you have suggestions for new episodes, awesome ghost stories, or anything else, please reach out to us. Our email address is newsworthywithsteveandjerry@gmail.com. Our text number is area code 540-709-1318.
And now, back to the story.
If you happen to be in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio, be aware, be very aware, because ever since the early 1700s, witnesses have seen a 7 to 9 feet tall, 300-pound ape-like creature very similar to Bigfoot, although very elusive and never being photographs. This particular brand of Bigfoot has been known to make small huts out of grass. Some believe that Bigfoot is just a creature of the Pacific Northwest, and that may be true. But what about his cousin, Grassman? Standing somewhere between 7 and 9 feet tall and well over 300 pounds, Grassman is an Ohio legend, a creature that wanders the fields and forest of Cuyahoga Valley. More human-looking than Bigfoot, but no less wild and no less mysterious. Grassman is said to eat mainly grass and wheat, and is sometimes spotted on the edge of farmers' fields, sampling the season's crop. Grassman is also said to build small huts out of grass where he spends a few nights before moving on to the next place. Despite numerous sightings throughout the 19th, 20th, and 21st century, no one has ever captured a clear photograph or video clip of the Grassman. And frankly, who would even try? While most stories indicate the creature is harmless, some accounts say that the Grassman can let out a ferocious, eerily human roar when confronted or harassed.
And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.